Okay, so a brand new One Punch Man chapter literally just came out like a couple of minutes ago, and this chapter is chapter 158. And of course, since this is the continuation from the last chapter, we know that the last chapter was a little bit controversial amongst the fan base, but I feel like this chapter will be a lot less controversial than the last one because personally, I preferred this chapter to the last one. To be completely honest, this chapter was a lot better than the last chapter. But of course, before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new, because I post a lot of One Punch Man content, and if you like that stuff, then this place is definitely for you. But apart from that, let's just get into the video because there's quite a lot to cover in this chapter, to be honest. I think there's about 40 odd pages, which isn't exactly the longest chapter, but there is a lot of fights, or there's a lot of fight sequences in this chapter. But of course, let's just get into it. Now, this chapter basically starts off where we left off in the last chapter. We see Metal Bat and Garou performing the Whirlwind Water String Rock Smashing Fist, or the Roaring Aura Sky Ripping Fist, sorry. And of course, Metal Bat performing a Savage Tornado. And we see that obviously this hits Sage Centipede and it does inflict some damage, and well, according to them, it actually doesn't inflict damage. Well, it looks like it does, but it actually has no effect on Sage Centipede. And Garou just says that Sage Centipede's skin, or the crackling of his skin, just doesn't stop, and he just keeps coming at Sage Centipede just keeps coming at them. But moving on, we see that obviously Metal Bat and Garou are starting to, I guess, kind of get into a little bit of a comedic argument here, and this is just kind of, I guess, a little bit of comedic relief here. Well, I don't really mind it, but we see that Metal Bat says, how many with an S-class level power would you need to carry out Garou's plan? And Garou's plan is to actually destroy this thing from head to tail at the same time. Well, obviously this plan is not very easy to carry out, but obviously moving on, we see that Sage Centipede is still kind of tailing this helicopter, and we see that obviously in the helicopter they're trying to get away from Sage Centipede, and they're actually shooting like some bullets, or some hyper strong bullets at Elder Centipede, or not Elder Centipede, sorry, Sage Centipede. And we see that these bullets don't really have much effect, and obviously Sage Centipede does get a hold of the helicopter, and at this point these guys aren't looking too good in the helicopter. But of course, Garou is worried about Tario in the helicopter, so of course Garou is going to fight and try to protect this helicopter along with Metal Bat. But moving on, we see that obviously Tario is looking at Garou and calls him uncle, and we see that Sage Centipede goes in for a Centipede Grand March once again, and this does look like it does do a lot of collateral damage, which in this panel it does look pretty impressive. But obviously it looks like Garou and Metal Bat are both taking damage here, and we see that Gear Spear is trying to use his pistol once again once Sage Centipede gets a hold of Garou so they can save him. And we see that obviously they're both focusing here, and we see that just when Sage Centipede is about to just completely finish off Garou, we see that the bullets actually do hit Sage Centipede, but in his multiple eyes. And we see that obviously this gives Garou some time to get out of the clutches of Sage Centipede, and once he does, he comes in for a punch and smacks Sage Centipede right in his mouth, or right in his jaw. I don't really know where this guy's mouth is because he's kind of a centipede. But anyway, moving on, we see that the guys in the helicopter are kind of saved here, and we see that whilst Garou is just kind of fending off Sage Centipede here, we see that Metal Bat comes in and saves Garou, kind of, well, not really saves, but supports him by using a spiral of overwhelming victory. Now this was pretty difficult to read because it was I had to turn my phone here a little bit, but obviously this is pretty impressive from Metal Bat here, and I feel like Metal Bat is kind of getting downplayed a little bit by the fan base, so hopefully after this chapter maybe people can put some more respect on my boy's name. But anyway, moving on, we see that obviously this does have an effect on Sage Centipede. And we know that since I guess Metal Bat's ability is fighting spirit, he says, "You sure beat me up as much as you liked and pumped me up with fighting spirit." So obviously this is just kind of telling us that, Metal Bat is not out of the game yet, and he's pretty much just only getting started. Now moving on, we see that Garou looks at Metal Bat and kind of smiles and says, yeah, he hasn't changed at all, which is true because this is just who Metal Bat is. But then Metal Bat actually tells Garou that there's actually a net ahead that he could throw the helicopter into. Now, Garou obviously does do this and throws the helicopter into a net where, they're safe away from Sage Centipede. And now that the helicopter is out of the way, now Metal Bat and Garou can now focus on taking down Sage Centipede. And we obviously see they're going in together, and we see that Sage Centipede gets a little bit angry here and said, "That other insect has been nothing to me from the very start. You think your pathetic team up can win against, all 6,666 of my legs working in tandem?" So this just kind of confirms that, Elder Centipede just has a crazy amount of hands and legs and whatever. So I guess that's kind of weird and cool at the same time. But then we see that Elder Centipede kind of goes into like a spiral shape and turns into kind of like a drill, and he just goes straight head on against these two and uses the 6,666 leg grand drill. So yeah, he uses that, and we see that Garou uses a whirlwind water stream, and obviously Metal Bat uses a fighting spirit, and they both go in at the same time and they completely destroy Sage Centipede here. I keep saying Elder Centipede, but when I say Elder Centipede, you guys know I'm actually talking about Sage Centipede. But we see that once this attack does connect, it does do a lot of damage on Sage Centipede here, and this is kind of reminiscent of Bang and Bomb's like combined attack back in season 2 when they were facing off against Elder Centipede. But of course this is this attack is a lot more powerful than that, and Sage Centipede is thinking, this coordination, why can a monster and a hero even do this? And we see that Garou and Metal Bat weren't actually trying to coordinate, but they just did because they just have such good chemistry in the first place. But of course, now we move on to Metal Bat just pummeling at Sage Centipede at this point, and we see that Sage Centipede isn't completely out of the game yet and tries to punch Metal Bat, and obviously Garou comes in and tries to save I guess Metal Bat here, and we see that he goes straight through Sage Centipede's core, or straight through I guess Sage Centipede's chest. It's kind of hard to gauge where this guy's chest is, but I'm guessing this is where his chest was, because once he like completely goes through Sage Centipede here, we see that Garou actually takes his regeneration core. And we see that obviously now that he's got this regeneration core, he can't actually regenerate, and it's kind of this this core is kind of reminiscent of Orochi's as it's as it's shown in this chapter, which is pretty interesting because this kind of leads me to believe that Sage Centipede is kind of like a mixture of Orochi and Elder Centipede. I know this is kind of like a theory, well, just not really a theory but a thought within the community, but this just kind of makes me believe it even more since they're kind of referring to Orochi here. But we see that Garou just straight up just throws this into the air, and now this is the end of the chapter, and Sage Centipede and Garou are racing up into the air to be the first ones to either catch this regeneration core in the case of obviously Sage Centipede, or to destroy it in the case of Garou. And we see in the last panel here, or the last section of the panel, we see that Metal Bat says we'll have to take a rain check on our last final battle. And obviously this is the end of this chapter, and this chapter it's not the craziest chapter, but it definitely is still like a solid 7.5, maybe an 8 out of 10, because some of the fight scenes and the panels were pretty cool, and seeing Metal Bat and Garou work together is always good to see. But to be honest, that's pretty much it for this video. I'll probably make 2 follow-up videos to this, one talking about Metal Bat and another probably talking about the connection between Orochi and Sage Centipede, because I feel like that's pretty interesting if we really think about it. And that's probably going to be one of the more, I guess, theory-based videos, or I guess you could call it something like that. But apart from that, that's pretty much it. If you like the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And apart from that, I'll see you in my next video.